So talk me through why you got involved in this particular era, why you ended up being involved in campaigning for women's spaces.
Well, I'm sort of an accidental campaigner. I think a lot of us are, because when the government was trying to change the Gender Recognition Act in 2018 to be self-ID, meaning that anyone could just request that they change their birth certificate from male to female or female to male, I started to see some problems with that. And then I started, once I was aware, I started seeing it everywhere. I started hearing about things that were happening in sport, in prisons. You might remember there were stories of women being sexually assaulted and even raped in women's prisons by men who were in there claiming to be women. Now, many people may genuinely feel that, but if there's one person I wouldn't trust, it's a convicted rapist.
Never in a million years I thought I would have to worry about seeing transgender women playing in sports. I never thought that they would be in prisons. I never thought that we would be having this discussion on why they shouldn't be in a woman's space, right? And how potentially dangerous that is. But what I have to say to you as a woman to woman, when you support a transgender woman, right? You're supporting that person coming into your space, coming around your daughter, right? And let's say you might know someone that's a transgender person and that they would never do that, Ocean. They would never do that, right? But you don't know every single transgender person in the world. And a man could just come in the next day and say that he's transgendering, right? And then what are you going to do? Because you voted for those policies, you supported those policies, and you advocated for your friend and people like your friend, right? But now you're in a situation when your daughter has to use the bathroom pretty badly, you don't have any option. And then you see a guy in the bathroom with a wig on, but he's shaving his beard. But because he's, transitioning, that's the correct term, it's okay, right? So you see how that can bite you back in your ass? So that's why I'm saying it is your responsibility and it is your duty to protect your daughters, to protect your sons from people like this. It is your right, it is your duty as a parent. Point blank period. I don't want to hear it. And not only that, you're supporting these people coming into your spaces. How can you betray your own self as a woman for this crap so you can be woke? This is not okay. Like, do you see the future that you're making for your kids? And can you really look in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm okay with that? And if you're okay with that, I just don't have anything nice to say. So I'm just going to continue with the video.
When he says he feels like a woman and he's entitled to be in a women's prison. So in 2018, all of that started to be kind of in the media a little bit. It's kind of gone off the media after that. The media, I think, got a bit nervous. But by then, a number of us had started to realise we had to push back. And I was working with Fair Play for Women, who mobilised the response to the Gender Recognition Act. We got that stopped. But, there are so many areas still where people simply seem to feel they have to accept that if a man says he now feels like a woman and wants to be treated as a woman, that he has the right.
What it comes down to, right, is societal pressures, right? I feel a lot of us were pressured into accepting men because we didn't want to be shamed. We didn't want to come off transphobic, that's the word, right? And we didn't want to be canceled. We didn't want our peers to look down on us. We didn't want to be judged. So we felt like we had to accept these new type of people, right? And we had to accept them in our spaces. I never felt that way, but I also wasn't so outspoken about it because I felt like, oh, I would be bashed, I would be canceled. People will see me against the movement. But I have to be against the movement because the movement affects my spaces. And now they're coming into sports that are meant for women. And now they're trying to come into our bathrooms and they have come into our bathrooms. So when it affects all of us and it affects the future children of the world, then you no longer can just sit aside and just be quiet while they take your spaces. You have to be outraged.
to have that. And Sex Matters, the group I'm with now, we simply say everyone's human rights matter, that person's rights matter, but so do mine, so do yours. And there are some times when we can't pretend that a man's a woman. Sport is a big one of those, but there are others. And so now that's the work that I focus on.
Because, of course, today is Trans Visibility Day. And we were talking about Leah Thomas. Now, this is obviously something that's happening in America, where this is clearly a man. He's in women's sports. But as you rightly pointed out earlier, that it's not just the sport itself where it's unfair for women. It's actually all the things around it as well.
Yeah, so Leah Thomas was very high profile because he was a very average swimmer and suddenly he was a national champion.
Write down in the comments, why do you think a biological man that transitioned into a woman is now a phenomenal athlete in women's sports? Why do you think that? Explain to me in scientific terms, explain to me in your own thoughts, and let me know.
In America, because of competing in a women's event. We had our own sort of Leah Thomas moment here with a cyclist called Emily Bridges, who'd been a male champion in Britain and then wanted to be in the women's team. But the area that I really focus on now is that at all levels of sport here in the UK, we're hearing from women and girls who are being forced out because they can no longer be confident of fair or safe sport. And you know, it's not just on the playing field. It's if you're going to go into the changing room and you can't be sure there isn't going to be a male in there. For some women, that's enough to drive them away. You know, that no one should have to explain why she wants privacy from the other sex. But we do hear from women. It can be their religion. It can be some trauma in their childhood. It can be teenage girls can be very self-conscious.
It just shows me that men really do not care about the sexual trauma that many women have faced in the past. They don't respect your religion. They don't respect your values. They don't respect your morals. They don't care about your discomfort. The only thing they care about is fulfilling their fantasy of becoming a woman. And a lot of the times, what I think it is too, they couldn't dominate other men in the sports that they were in. So it's easier for them to go into a woman's sport and dominate other women because they know deep down that they have advantage over biological women. So that's just my thoughts on it. And you can't change it. You just can't. And I do see you as a pygmisha. If you go against what I'm saying, yeah, you're a pygmisha. You should just probably unsubscribe.
There are so many reasons. And so a measure that sports call inclusive, which is letting males who identify as women into women's categories, we're finding is actually excluding women and girls because they're driven out of sport. They lose their place. They're afraid of being injured on a football field. And they just don't want the discomfort of having to share changing rooms with men.
Well, I don't understand why this has become a thing, because to me it's quite clear that if a man is a man, a woman is a woman. If a man wants to identify as a woman, the first thing I would ask is, what is a woman? Because it doesn't feel to me that they can ever answer that. What is a woman then? Is it some... People say it's a feeling, it's a this, is that... No, it's not. It's a biological reality. Otherwise, what is a woman?
Yeah, well, that is a big question. And I'd also say, what's a man?
What's so crazy? I don't see a bunch of transgender men going into biological men sports and trying to dominate them. You don't see that. I'm not sure if there's a incident where that's happened, probably, but you don't see anybody making the news as a trans man trying to go into a biological man's sports and then dominating that sport. You don't see that, but you sure see it when it goes the other way around, right? You see it.
And the fundamental truth is the reason we have a separate category in sport and in many other places like prisons is because male and female bodies are so different. You know, female bodies can do amazing things. You know, we can gestate and give birth to a baby. But because we're geared up for that, even if we never do it, our bodies are different from male bodies and we just cannot produce the same power, the same speed. You know, if you put a man and a woman of similar size and age together, he can punch more than twice as hard.
Hey guys, watch out for part two.